Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.
So we're going to get things started here. We've got audio sound waves, and it's looking good.
It's much better when the sound waves are working.
It does. I found that in podcast world, it's so much better.
Yeah, it works a little better than when it doesn't. But hey, you know, that's at least now that we know that we have working sound waves.
Yeah.
And we have a show that's turned on and a camera that's doing things and whatever else, that maybe we could, if we have working sound waves.
We should do a show.
We should do a show.
And should we have somebody on?
I think if the sound waves are on, we should have somebody on.
Okay. I agree with you so much, so I've decided to go ahead with it. I assumed that that'd be the feeling you would have.
This is my 100. I'm so glad you know me.
Okay. I know you so well.
He knows me too well.
So today,
Too well.
Today we are having a special guest.
We're having a special guest?
Yes.
Who's our special guest, Jacob?
Well, without former ado, here we go. That's not even a real expression.
I love former ado. Without former ado.
I don't know. That's something. There's some without.
I think former.
No, without much ado.
Well, it's definitely much ado, but I'm wondering where you got the former, like what that goes with.
I probably heard somebody say it somewhere sometime,
and
it just got lost. We're gonna find it in there.
We're gonna think about what, because that's probably a different. I feel like that's a different.
I think that's
idiom.
two phrases put together.
Yeah.
I think now it has to go to the end of the show
without former ado,
because it doesn't make any sense.
It's official. Without former ado is now one of our taglines.
One of our taglines. All right, now we're going to welcome Shelbi, known as Sustainably Shelbi, known as Shelbizleee. Welcome to the show.
Shelbi, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to the Biofriendly Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's so great to have you.
Yeah, well.
So we got to throw some disclaimers down really quick before we dive too heavy. So this podcast was recorded potentially a week or 2 weeks ago. We're not sure when we're going to release it.
Yeah.
At the time of this podcast, we've just found out that there's a quarantine going on through most of the U.S.
Yes.
And that things are starting to.
People are being encouraged to not leave, not to go outside.
Right. So we don't know at the point when this releases what that's going to mean. We are going to do, and you probably have already. In fact, you definitely have already heard our special.
Yeah.
On the coronavirus and what tips and tricks you can do to make this experience as comfortable as possible.
Agreed.
So we've asked Shelbi to, if it comes up, it's fine. We'll totally talk about it, but we're not going to focus on the coronavirus for this one because we're hoping that at the time of the release of this, that you would all like to hear
something
other
else.
Things.
Yeah, you'd like to focus on other things.
Yes.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I'm so glad that we've got this recording done with Shelbi, because the last time we scheduled to do this with Shelbi was one of my greatest disappointments in life, where I have her all set up on Skype, we're ready to do the interview, and I cannot see the sound waves of her voice coming in on the podcast, and I was like, oh no, and we all awkwardly shuffled around, and all eyes were on me. Noel was looking at me, Shelbi was looking at me, but she wasn't even here, but she was looking at me, and it was with really
such disappointment. If I could express the disappointment that I felt and was trying to beam into Jacob's face.
But this time,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but this time I'm happy to say it does happen. She was so sweet about it.
Shelby's the best.
She is the best, and she was so sweet about it when it failed. She was like, "I get it,"
This is, I do. Internet people, we get it. It happens.
Internet people. Well, speaking of,
Shelbi is a much more impressive internet person than we are.
Oh, for
By
sure.
the way, we should put that out there.
We are. We're putting it out there for everybody to know.
For those of you who, you'll know by the time this is over, you'll know you've got to follow Shelbi. She is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's a perfect place to start. Yeah, that's a perfect place to start. I want to hear about your journey and what led you into this field of sustainability and teaching about, environmentalism and things that we can do in the zero waste world. Tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting. I think I have a different perspective than a lot of, quote, environmentalists do, only because I grew up in a small Texas town. And so my story of coming into sustainability is not like this one big action happened to me and I became so passionate.
Right.
Just in high school, I was the president of my student council.
Cool.
Nice.
On them. And we had to pick a subcategory, if that makes sense. There was social events, and I always forget what the third one was, but one of them was concerning the environment and sustainability. And actually, I don't even know if sustainability was so commonly used back then, because I didn't come familiar with it until recently. But So ever since then, I just was really interested in the environment. But as someone, like I said, in a small Texas town, I think mostly what I knew was like recycling is good. Like it wasn't, that was 10 years ago now, which always feels crazy to say. But so then when I was looking into going to college, I had like no real, I guess, desires to study anything specific, except for like my only passion at the time was the environment. So I was like, well, I don't really want to manage a recycling facility, but that's all I know. Yeah. And so I did some digging. My cousin helped me, and I ended up majoring in environmental science, going to school for it.
Oh, great.
And then I have bachelor's of science from Texas A&M.
Wow. The Texas A&M University.
Look at you. I love it.
Yes. And then but when the story gets a little bit more interesting is I graduated, right? And I always thought I wanted to go into government. I wanted to go into government so I could make change.
Sure.
So I started working for the state, regulating like environmental air pollutants. I was in the enforcement division working on regulating air pollution.
Wow.
And just slowly started to realize I really think I could do more if I tried this out myself, if I tried influencing people myself.
Right. Sure.
So my YouTube channel was born. And it's just been kind of history ever since. I ended up leaving my job to pursue being an internet human, I guess is the best way to put it.
Internet human.
Now we're here.
Yeah. That's on your resume. Internet human. Well, and your YouTube channel is named, your handle, I guess is I don't know what the right thing. Your name is Shelbizleee with 3 E's on the end. And now I'm assuming it's got 3 E's on the end because you're just like environment. You're just yelling.
No, it's because she forgot the third one. Environment, education. The E, the third one I forgot.
I forgot it. Anyway, yeah. Is there a story?
Something.
Energy, yeah.
Is there a story behind that name?
Better. Yeah, no, yours is definitely better. I might use that from now on.
You're welcome.
When I started, I just Shelbizleee was like a nickname, like something I wasn't even like super proud of this nickname when I decided to make it my YouTube channel name. I just
Shelbizleee
and made it something.
I'm saying it like Shelbizleee.
And a lot of people do because my silly self put all those E's on the end. But the only purpose of those E's was to make all my usernames match. Because on some of the platforms, people had it without the extra E's.
Yeah, that's funny.
Hilarious.
So this origin of the story was Shelbizleee, which is super cute. That's a great nickname.
That also shows you how out of touch we are.
I know.
This was Shelbizleee. Because everyone does business, and business is important.
Yeah, we're such dads and adult men that are just like, yeah, that's it. But
I get it. Everybody does.
That's so great.
You are so kind and wonderful.
Yes.
If anyone hasn't told you that before, every conversation we've had with you, you've been so understanding of our idiocy. And I really appreciate that.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, honestly, in terms of sustainability, which I know we're going to get into, that is what I pride myself on, is coming from a place of understanding that not everybody can do everything, and I can't expect the average person to care as much as I do.
Yeah.
I really do try to practice, I guess, putting myself in other people's shoes. That's one of the things I pride myself on, for sure.
Awesome.
And that is 100% why when we found you, we were just we have to
have her on the show.
We have to have Shelbizleee, which we were wrong about. We have to have Shelbizzle on our show because that's exactly 100% what our message is about.
Yeah.
We're so glad to find people who agree with us on that and who have common ground to work with, and so we're very, very happy to have you on the show. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we obviously this has really grown for you and become just a full-time thing beyond YouTube. It seems all over. If you Google your name, all of Google is you on all of Google.
Every Google, even if you Google unrelated things,
it's
amazing. You're everywhere.
It's weird.
I Googled pasta,
and I got Shelbi.
And I was looking for a pasta recipe, and strangely enough, I found one. But you were the one teaching me how to do it. No, I'm kidding.
But anyway,
that's about right. Pasta is my favorite food.
Is it really? Oh, me too. I love pasta.
Good guess, and that sounds really good right now. Let's go for some pasta.
Totally. I'm really into carbonara right now.
Oh, carbonara.
Yeah, because the little bit of bacon and it's just oof.
Yeah.
And the peas somehow make the whole thing come together.
Yeah.
Like, what's your favorite pasta? I know this is not a sustainable conversation, but while we're here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love trying different pastas.
Yeah.
Like I like when restaurants get creative with it. So right now it's like a spicy rigatoni with also the green. Add so much just like texture.
Yeah.
I like it.
I love anything spicy. I love the spicy stuff.
Yeah.
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 Well, in Texas, you probably, I mean, isn't that where the world famous chili cook-offs and everything? I mean, isn't that where spice is like a demanded by the public?
Yeah. Maybe.
I believe yes, but also Tex-Mex is a huge thing here, which has some spice. So,
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Nice.
Well, when you started your YouTube channel, so if you go, she's got a ton of content teaching, and I want to get into all that. But it looks like one of the first forays that you went into was dumpster diving, and I want to hear a little bit about that and what happened there, because I can obviously see you don't do it anymore. And I want to know some of those reasons why. So can you tell us a little bit about how that started and how that evolved?
Yes, I can tell you all about it. It's interesting the way this all happened. So I started dumpster diving in college, which was probably 3-4-ish years before I ever made a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But we would do dumpster diving in our college town. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but your listeners are probably familiar with like when college students leave their dorms or their apartments, they will just throw out perfectly good stuff, and not cheap stuff either. We're talking like furniture, things that you can get up to $200, $300 for. They'll just leave it out on the curb. It's insane to see happen.
Yeah.
And all my roommates went home for the summer, and me and my fiance, girlfriend at the time, we stayed, and we had this 4-bedroom apartment to ourselves, and noticed all these couches out on the road. So we were like, let's start selling them on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
And that was before Facebook Marketplace existed. There were just little pages you could post on and stuff.
Sure.
But we made a significant amount of money that summer doing that.
Wow.
And,
that's crazy. How industrious of you. I love it.
Maybe you are Shelbizleee.
She does have she has the business mind for sure. I love it.
Yeah. So then fast forward to a few years later when I moved to Austin, and I saw this video of someone dumpster diving on YouTube. I've been a YouTube fiend for years, literally since 2010, I think. I've lived on YouTube, lived and breathed it.
Yeah.
And so I saw a video of it, and I thought this could be a really good, like, attention-grabbing way to let people know what these companies are doing, because specifically people were dumpster diving at corporate dumpsters and finding that they were throwing out brand new things if they were returned. That was a lot of reasons, like appliances and things just thrown in the dumpster because they were returned. Things like store testers that were not touched a lot of the times, thrown in the dumpsters. Just, it was crazy, the magnitude of things you can see on my channel from back then. And also food. Like we did a challenge where we ate only food from a dumpster for a week.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
An extreme thing to do, but under the guise of trying to teach you about how crazy this is, I was happy to be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And you're still with us, so apparently it all worked out.
It all worked out. You survived it all.
Yeah, people were really worried, like in my personal life, but obviously also online.
Sure.
And I understand the worry, but I was also young and a little naive at the time. I probably wouldn't do it the same way I did it back then. Now.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously I'm fine.
Yeah.
And but the part where it kind of took a turn was the thing that was most trendy on YouTube at the time was dumpster diving at makeup stores.
Yeah.
And I would make those videos because I knew they would work, they would reach people. But unfortunately, what seemed to happen was my message of like, look how crazy this is ridiculous. We should be like standing up against this kind of thing, like encouraging companies not to be doing this.
Right.
That all seemed to get lost in the consumerist aspect of it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but when you're getting like hundreds and thousands of comments a day of people being like, oh my God, I can't believe you found that. I wanted to buy that. Or people asking to do giveaways or people asking just essentially like how they can get the consumer goods they want just for free and have no concern with like the bigger picture of what's happening.
Sure, the environmental impact.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It was very hard to like wake up every day, and I was also working a full-time job, and YouTube is more than a full-time job on its own. So
yeah, I can
if
imagine.
it's not driving you, if you feel like your message is getting like distorted, then it's very hard to keep going.
Sure.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's why I stopped, because the message of what I was doing wasn't working, and I couldn't make myself put in the hours of work to do it when it just was getting lost in the consumer, video consumer, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of we can definitely relate to that. So Jacob and I don't know if you knew this coming in when you did your research, but we actually started in YouTube as well. We used to be entertainment people. We had a show on YouTube called Good Cops, which is the show about mustachioed idiots trying to solve crimes with explosions and stuff. Anyways, it went really well. We sold it to Machinima and made a bunch more of those, and eventually made a movie and did a bunch of stuff. But when you're doing YouTube, and you're creating a lot of YouTube content, I don't think people quite realize that like the amount of energy you put in to make that happen and to make that go. It is a real commitment. And when people are getting the point and understanding it and then going with it and running with it, it's very rewarding, and it's a lot of fun and can even be financially rewarding. But when they when they don't, and when it turns, or when things start to go pear-shaped on it, which happens, with anything, right? It is so exhausting that the concept of we need to pivot here.
Yeah.
We need to try to do something different.
Yeah.
I mean it's real. I mean, that's one of the reasons we went into film stuff and away from YouTube, is because YouTube can be so exhausting. The people, the trolls.
Yeah, the people who come after you. Yeah. Oh boy.
It's wild. So the fact that you've managed to pivot and keep going is pretty awesome. And
it is.
Would love to hear how the pivot went and where you are now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. It definitely, I think it's something people don't talk about a lot, because it seems like such a privileged place to sit as someone who just makes videos on the internet and be like, my job is so hard, it's so exhausting, but it is. It's so much more than a full-time job. And I appreciate you being able to like relate with me on that.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, I basically made the decision to pivot kind of slowly. I would start putting out videos that I thought were my message, along with the dumpster diving one. Okay. So for maybe like 6 months-ish, I was doing both. Like every week I would upload a dumpster video and then maybe like a zero waste video or something related to
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Transition out, basically.
So, what'd you say?
Oh, I said transition. Just a transition out, like of that one to the next. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first method, trying to make the switch. And then one day I just made a video where I sat down and like explained why I wanted to stop doing it, the dumpster diving thing. And I just stopped. But I made sure that everybody understood why I was doing it.
Sure.
So that was good. I basically explained what I just explained to you guys. And for a while, like a good while, I would log into YouTube every day and be losing subscribers.
Yeah.
And my views were obviously down because the people who subscribed didn't subscribe for like sustainability.
Right.
And it was a hard time, but I knew that if I was going to do this long term, it had to be done. Like I couldn't keep, it was not sustainable in terms of my energy.
Of course.
To keep doing it.
Yeah. I really admire you for that. I really do. That's a powerful thing to be in that position, because it is hard in the culture of YouTube and creating your own content. When you see your subscribers go down and you see kind of a blowback for making that decision, but to really stick to your gut and go, no, but this is why I got into this. This is what I am passionate about, and this is my voice. This is my journey, and I'm going to stick to it. And I want to say, I think that's really inspiring for our audience and our listeners, that this journey can be a challenging one sometimes, because people will tell you, no, you need to do this. No, you need to do this. And a lot of times you really have to follow your heart and your passions. And I can clearly see you've done that. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was feeling so moved.
No, totally, absolutely. It was great. I mean, yes. Yes, 100%. I mean, it is brave. I don't know if our audience quite understands how brave that is. When you have a shtick, when you have something that audiences are digging in on, you get these multi-channel networks, right? MCNs, and these different groups will come in and they'll start to offer you money. They'll start to give you like, okay, so we're going to help flow money in your direction and opportunities in your direction, and you get all these different financial opportunities from your shtick, from the thing that you're doing. And if you change and turn on that, they all go away. All those people who love you and are willing to pay you and give you money, they disappear.
Yeah.
And you have to now redefine yourself and then get yourself back to that point with a new audience and with a new point of view. And that's not hard to do. And so it's brave and impressive that you've come around and pulled it off. So, So sorry, but continue.
It is hard to do, you mean?
It is. Did I say it
You said it's not hard to do.
It's not hard to do. It's so easy. It's so easy. I'm sorry. Sometimes when I get into
former ado, without former ado,
it's not hard to do. So sorry, but continue. This is great. So now, what do you think is your favorite topic to cover now, and what has the channel sort of through sustainability become? Like what are the things you focus on, and what is your passion mostly about?
Yeah. So that's also a little complicated because even though my channel definitely is doing well, I'm very, very happy and thankful with where it is. But I do have one frustration with like just the way you have to kind of, I guess it's the messaging, right? The word zero waste has become so attention grabbing, I guess I would say.
Sure.
It's like it's something I consciously think about when I'm making content is what am I going to title this? What's going to make someone click on it?
Right.
What's eye-catching essentially.
Yeah.
Sure.
Whereas I would say my biggest passion is actually not like post-product waste. It's more so the behind-the-scenes footprint, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like the Story of Stuff, are you guys familiar with this book?
No, I'm not. Tell us.
Yeah, so the Story of Stuff basically explains like how much waste and like resource use and energy, et cetera, goes into every single thing we buy. And there is so much bigger of a footprint for like every single thing that we don't see. And I think Zero Waste had its moment trying to educate people about the waste problem, and obviously still needs to continue. Doesn't need to take a backseat, but what's happening before you ever buy something or anything makes it to you is incredibly resource intensive in terms of energy, transportation, resources we have to extract from the earth to create things, water usage, etc. So those things are what I'm really passionate about, explaining to people, trying to educate people on that. And I'm constantly having to try to figure out ways to make that interesting, which is the key part of my job that I think is like the hardest, but also the most fun, is trying to figure out how to make invisible resource use sound interesting and sexy in the sustainability realm.
Totally.
Yeah. It's sexy to know how much water you're using.
Right? Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you've seen, I'm curious to know about your social circles and people that you know, and have you seen them kind of shift how they do their day-to-day and start to come around on the green message and environmentalism and sustainability? Have you seen it kind of over time? Maybe the more reluctant and stubborn friends of yours kind of be like, all right, I can see this.
Yeah, well, I think maybe if you've been being an environmentalist quote for 10 years, I think to see the evolution of what kind of environmentalist you are, or activist, maybe I should say. Are you the kind that high school Shelby was, shaming everybody when she was nowhere near perfect and making them feel guilty?
Sure.
Right.
Not effective.
Yes.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And then are you the maybe college age Shelby where you know it all and you speak from a point of privilege and, I don't know, over just being too much kind of thing?
Yes.
Never doesn't really help. Or are you the Shelby today within the last few years who is like I said, I pride myself on trying to be understanding and mostly living by example, because if you're not doing all these things that they could essentially come back and be like, but you do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
They just quickly come up with an excuse not to do better.
Right.
But if you're living what you believe, and then you make a suggestion, or they just notice what you're doing, they're a lot more likely to change. So within the last few years is the only time I've seen anyone in my life make a real shift. And not in huge ways. They're not doing all the crazy things that I do, but they'll send me pictures when they use their reusable produce bags at the grocery store, or how they're reusing something in their homes and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess recently I feel very proud that finally my friends and family are doing, some of the good things.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny though how good that really does feel?
It does.
Because that's for us. It's the same thing. It's we're not trying to tell people to do everything. We don't want them to do the crazy thing. But whenever we see somebody on the Painless Green post, which is our Facebook group, in case you're wondering, but post something simple, some little thing they do, and they're so proud. They're so like, look, I did it. I did this thing.
Yeah.
To know that somebody feels really good about doing something. Like it's a much happier life to be able to feel good with them and to be able to be like, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You totally did that thing, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Than it is to be like, well, you're not doing that thing, and you're not running your engine on peanut oil, and like it's there's a lot of ways we could be total jerks about things, but that doesn't help anybody, right? I mean, we don't know what we can only walk in our own shoes. We can't walk in other people's shoes. And you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what experiences they've had, what information they're working with. We just don't know. We don't. And so to try to force people to live a life that they are never going to be able to live is insane.
Right.
But to make them, not to make them, but to give them ideas and opportunities to try to change a thing here and there and to pick what they want. I mean, it does feel good, and so I'm glad that you're fighting that, and I'm glad that you were seeing that and getting that joy as well, because it is pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. That's great. That's great. I actually wanted to say one thing you reminded me, and I'm so glad this came back to me, because from our last time where we tried to meet you and it didn't work out, I had all this stuff ready in my mind, like, oh, these are the things that I wanted to talk about. And you talking about the shift, I was thinking about how I think that the global conversation is starting to shift. We're starting to, people are starting to look at this as a more positive thing, as an inspiring thing, and everybody's moving away from doom and gloom. And I was thinking about the crazy thing is Shelbi and our paths almost crossed like ships in a night in Phoenix, Arizona.
Really?
Because we were at Green Biz, which was right after the Open. You went to the... what's that called? The Open.
The Phoenix Open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And you went, and it was a big eco waste management sponsored. You had a cool video that I was watching. It was like, oh my God, Shelbi was there. Like, she was leaving as we were landing. That's the crazy thing. She was there, right?
Yes. And they kept telling us that the guy who coordinated the Open, he was kind of doing our tours and stuff. And he kept saying, we have Green Biz right after this. It's so crazy, so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was even like aware it was happening, but I didn't know that you guys...
Yeah,
I figured there would be cool people there, but this proves that, I guess.
Well, it was our first green conference we'd ever gone to, and so when I found your video, it's like, oh, that's so awesome, because you were walking around the facility, and I was like, we were just there, and you were learning, like, Waste Management was hosting it, and they were so proud because the whole event, as we talked about before, was zero waste, was the composting, and they were making sure, and your event was like that, our event was like that, and so it was really exciting to see your video because you were there and really experiencing what we were too. And I left that conference just super charged up about what is possible and what people can do when driven to do it right. You know what I mean? And I saw that same energy from your video too. It was really inspiring.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the thought that you can have that many people and legitimately manage their waste in that span of time was just, it's crazy. I feel like I kept saying throughout like my content, my video and my Instagram posts and all that, it feels like something a company would say their goal is for like 10 years from now.
Sure.
We're going to host an event with 700,000 people and have no waste. It sounds like one of those goals companies say and then you kind of forget about. Like you get excited.
It's a greenwashing goal.
Kind of forget and then yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they're doing it, and like I saw it firsthand. It was probably one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do from this job for sure.
Yeah.
And again, it tells you what's possible. I think that we sort of underestimate ourselves. I mean, the destruction we're able to create is pretty remarkable. But
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Right. But the recovery that we are able to create is also pretty remarkable if we just have the mind frame to do it, the mindset to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what you see when you see your friend, share some little things. You see, oh, they're in.
They're in.
They're not gonna do everything, but they're in. Like they're up for doing some things. They're up for trying, and that's all it's gonna take. That really is.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to see that when they see the size of the problem. They don't quite realize that that's all it takes, but it does, because you get once enough people are in and are like, yeah, I can do some things. I understand it. I understand the problem. I get that. Now I get it. That's all it takes, because then people are willing to be excited about a zero waste event with 700,000 people, right? Like they'd be like, oh, you stupid greenies, you stupid zero waste
weirdos.
thing. Oh, it just goes in a hole anyway, and we'll build on top of it. Who cares?
Yeah, right.
Like, they don't understand. But but now they do. Now they get like, oh, that is better. That is cool. That is exciting. And so. Yeah, so you are a hero. We're so glad to have had you and to hear this perspective and this point of view, and to see that you're out there with us on the charge doing this. It's really great.
Yeah. Before we say goodbye, because we're gonna wrap things up, but I wanted to just make sure everybody can know where to find you. So can you tell us all the places online where our listeners can come and check out your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So my main thing, as you might have picked up on today, is YouTube. It's my biggest passion, and also where I'm most active. I post twice a week usually.
Awesome.
So that's Shelbizleee, SHELBIZL, and then the 3 E's that we talked about.
Yeah, environment.
Exactly. Now you won't forget it.
Yeah.
But it's the same on Instagram, and then I have a website that I'm working on building out. It's not I don't give as much attention to it as maybe I should, but my website is also shelbizleee.com.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That is awesome. You definitely got to go check her out. She has such fun videos, and you just really are. You're so pleasant to listen to and watch in all of the things that you share online about zero waste and the things that can be done. And it is such a great resource. So we do highly advise our listeners to check it out. Go subscribe and follow her content, because she's great.
Because you're getting the same vibe, the same message, the same energy as you're getting here. So if you like this, you will like that. We promise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. We'd love to keep in touch, and we'll let you know when this episode drops, and we'll keep in touch. Okay, so we hope all the best for you and your loved ones, and yeah, that's about it. Thanks for coming on the Biofriendly Podcast.
Thank you so much, Shelby. Shelbizleee, not Shelbizleee.
Shelbizleee.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Well, terrificness personified.
Terrificness personified is right. That was a blast. We are our guests on this show. So far, we've had the best guests on this show, and I love that.
Well, I think that we need to take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, to applaud one Jacob Givens.
What?
We don't often do it.
What?
Because normally we're trying to punch him in the face, because it's always fun to do.
Of course, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. But today, I think we need to. I think everybody needs to understand what Jacob puts into this show, and the effort that Jacob gives to give you a really great product. I think that it is often overlooked. But Jacob goes out and he does the research, and he finds the people, and then he pitches them, and he goes, hey, I think this is a good fit for you. I think this is a good fit for us. I think we should do this together. And he goes and he finds these great guests, and he finds these great topics, and he keeps it, on the right groove. And I think that we mustn't forget the value of Jacob.
I thank you, Noel. That's so nice.
It's true. I often make it a point to not say nice things about you.
Yes,
so today
I get it.
Today we're switching it up.
Today we're switching up. We're gonna do nice things for you, buddy. Well, let's go shopping.
Let's go shopping.
Let's go shopping. Cut to a montage of me trying on outfits.
In the middle of a quarantine.
Right. Oh wait.
Classic us.
In front of my closet. That's what we'll do.
There you go.
But we've been your beacon of light in a gloomy environment.
Not just charismatic megafauna.
Without former ado, that's a new one.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the long
greater
one.
parasympathetic nerve activity.
Nature is perfect. Look at eggs.
Oh, wait, there's one more, though. There's a new one we got.
There is, but I can't remember what it is.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, it'll come to us like it always does. If you've been following a show as long as you have, you learn that every year we gather a ton of ridiculous tags and then we dispose of them at the end of the year. So anyway, thank you for joining us. We'll see you when we see you. Boop, boop.
It's the Biofriendly Podcast. It's the Biofriendly Podcast.